Even the few sentences that we're told about this firm called Regional Disaster Relief Services gives us enough information to exercise not one but actually several of the major frameworks for organizing and classifying operations. We'll take a look. Regional Disaster Relief Services, or RDRS, provides assistance to the victims of natural disasters. Okay, so there's one description. RDRS relies on fundraising. I'm just going to note verbs here to support its permanent networks of 15 warehouses. You know, I can't resist this. It's not a verb, it's a noun. I'm going to use a different color. Housing inventory of tents, trailers, tools, portable lighting, and water filtration equipment, and electrical generators. Upon news of a disaster, RDRS activates its, no, this is resources again, staff and volunteers deploy and provide assistance in the field until permanent services are restored to the citizens of the disaster area. Right, the question is, what kind of operation is RDRS? Now, wait, why was I color coding nouns and verbs? Oh, because the question is, well, describe, from what little you know, what kind of operation is RDRS? Okay, first off, one of the major categorization schemes of operations is the idea of goods versus services. So what RDS provides, the value that it provides, is it a tangible good or is it a service? Well, let's see. It says here that it provides assistance versus manufacturing some type of product. Our first decision concerning what kind of operation is, it's pretty safe to categorize RDRS as definitely a service. They're not a manufacturer of a good, right? But wait. But wait, there's more, because we also discussed the different types of operations, not necessarily just goods or just services, but whether an operation would be categorized as primarily production and service management, you know, meaning a high degree of control and less uncertainty in its operating environment, versus project management, where you're working on very unique outcomes and there's a little bit more uncertainty, versus event management, where you're very, very much time-based, versus, I'm working my way down a spectrum here, incident management. Incident management, where you have to respond to unexpected requests for assistance. RDRS is also very much in the business of incident management. Oh, wait a minute, what kind of operation is RDRS? Something else that we look at when we're analyzing, you know, like any given business, any given operation, is the issue of governance. Oh, let's see, is RDRS a for-profit commercial organization? Are they a non-profit organization? And then in particular, if they're a non-profit organization, are they a governmental organization? RDRS, from the sound of it, I would say definitely non-profit. Non-profit, why? Because of the fundraising. They said in here that they rely on fundraising. Now, it's not impossible, but that is generally a characteristic of a nonprofit organization. It would also be consistent with generally the types of organizations that are involved in disaster relief. Now, are they a governmental organization? That's kind of hard to tell from the just a few sentences we were given. Regional disaster relief, we can't really tell from this paragraph. So we might not want to strictly label them an NGO, but in disaster response, NGOs are non-governmental organizations. Nonprofit organizations are very, very common. At least in terms of governance, pretty safe to say nonprofit. Oh, now notice that we've actually made 3 different classifications here talking about what kind of operation they are. their service. Look like they're very much into incident management, and it looks like probably their governance is they're a nonprofit organization. Oh, now, if we want to continue analyzing them, remember all of the words that I was fascinated with. Those could be very useful in, and you see them on the note frame if you have it for this particular problem, conducting an input-output model. Oh, right. Clarifying again this particular organization, kind of how they work. What are these 3 squares and 2 arrows? The theory is any organization can be described this way. It consists of a set of inputs that are tracking into a transformation process. Transformation. Oh, I wrote the word too long. But that's definitely what the second square is. Why? To create a set of outputs. Oh, and we can do this style of analysis or this clarification for RDRS. Now, the key to this style of analysis is that the inputs and the outputs, generally speaking, are nouns. Because on the input side, what are the inputs to an operation? Well, they can be anything that are being drawn into the transformation process, but they're going to include the resources that the operation relies on. Did you notice that they were listing that in this short paragraph? Because inputs, what are the inputs here? RDS relies on fundraising. Okay, we noted that. Now wait a minute, fundraising is a verb. We're going to use that, but later, to support its permanent network of 15 warehouses. That's where that goes. There's the network of warehouses. Housing its inventory. I'm not going to write the tents, trailers, tools, portable lighting, and water filtration equipment, but you could if you wanted to go into that level of detail. And another very, very important resource that was mentioned, and I underlined it in yellow, was both their staff and their volunteers. These are all inputs into their transformation process. Oh, okay, wait, the transformation process, or processes. Just as the inputs are essentially a list of nouns, the center of this model, what you're looking is the action, the verbs. What goes on at this operation, right? Oh, okay. Yeah, I told you that we would get back to fundraising. Actually, fundraising, in order to support all of this, is one of their transformation processes. Fundraising. But also they mentioned, I know this doesn't sound action-packed, but it is an action, warehousing. It is not easy to store and keep track of things such that they're in top shape and ready to go at any moment. Warehousing, they do that. But then there is also true action, right? Deployment. Assistance. And you could keep going on if you want to go into a greater level of detail. But in the paragraph, those were essentially the major. Now notice they're more verbs. They're things that are done that were mentioned. Oh, okay. And then to round out our input transformation process output, our input-output model, write the outputs. The output or outputs. Now, in this model, the finished product of any operation is going to be on the output side, and so is anything else that the operation causes or creates. In the case of our DRS, I don't know that it's all that valuable from what little we're told to try to create a bullet point list of specifics. Basically, what is the output? It's disaster assistance. That is why they exist. That is what they are dedicated to providing. So we list that on the output side.